Have you ever wondered what rehabilitation entailed in a prison system looks like? And how it can not only benefit inmates, but our society as a whole? Through this informative speech, I hope to give you some more perspective and knowledge on what the term rehabilitation looks like and how it can not only benefit inmates, but our society as a whole. I've done copious amounts of research on this topic as I did write an essay last year for my English class touching on the subject of rehabilitation. Firstly, I'd like to define the definition of rehabilitation for you and what it entails in these prison systems. Secondly, where are some places in the world that do practice rehabilitation and what do the statistic rates look like? And thirdly, the benefits of rehabilitation versus corporal punishment. Firstly, what is rehabilitation? Well, Oxford Dictionary defines it as such: the action of rehabilitating someone to health or normal life through training and therapy after imprisonment, addiction, or illness. According to Rage University, inmates that are allowed rehabilitation services are given many different outlets that can help them. Educational resources, jobs, which provide income for inmates after they leave the system, mental and physical wellness, as well as community outreach programs, which allows inmates of various different religious backgrounds to practice their religion inside of these facilities through churches, temples, and synagogues. Now that I have spoken about the definition of rehabilitation and what it entails in these prison systems, I'd love to touch on some of the statistics from other countries versus ours. According to TakePart.com, Italy, Germany, Norway, India, Sweden, Ethiopia, Uruguay, Poland, Belgium, and Slovenia are some of the few countries that do put rehabilitation before corporal punishment in their prison systems. An article published by BusinessInsider.com shared countries that do practice rehabilitation, such as Norway versus here in the United States, and what they found will surprise you. Our incarceration here in the United States is 707 per 100,000 people in this country, and our reactivism rate is 76.6%, whereas somewhere in Norway is a 75% rate of incarceration per 100,000 people, and the reactivism rate was only at 20%. Another like-minded country, such as Sweden, which also practices rehabilitation, had an article posted by Mike.com in 2018 showing their statistics. Mike.com states that reactivism rate for Swedish prisoners was only 40%, and some facilities even had to shut down due to lack of prisoners. And if this statistic doesn't surprise you, according to Statista.com as of 2020, the United States ranks number 1 in the world for 655 inmates per 100,000 persons, and a big difference from places such as Norway and Sweden. Now that I've spoken to you about the definition of rehabilitation, as well as some statistics from other countries, I'd love to touch on rehabilitation versus corporal punishment. As we can see by these statistics that I've given you, rehabilitation is working. Unfortunately, corporal punishment seems to only introduce more reoffenders into our systems. According to Justice.gov, the Federal Bureau of Prisons is now trying to adopt new policies into our prison systems to mirror those of the rehabilitative ones. Reintroducing inmates into society is much more beneficial than constantly reoffending and coming back into the prison systems. Another important fact to keep in mind with corporal punishment are the practices that are put on these prisoners. One that is extremely detrimental is solitary confinement. SPLCenter.org posted a study back in 2018 showing the cons of solitary confinement on prisoners. Surprisingly enough, it heightened the reoffending rate for prisoners, and it also increased the suicide rate within prisons. A whopping 10% of Florida's prison population is regulated to solitary confinement, whereas the nationwide percent average was only 4.5% as of 2018. Keep in mind as well that the UN considers solitary confinement a form of torture. In conclusion, through all of these facts and statistics provided for you today, it's quite prevalent that we do need to change our prison systems. We need to enforce more humane ways, and rehabilitation is a great source for these inmates. We have the capability to eradicate the cycle of violence and abuse and make upstanding citizens of these inmates. And as Gandhi once said, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Thank you so much.